Welcome to the Hope, Health, and Healing podcast. I am Michelle Hannah Fields, and I am your host for episode 14, where I am joined by my friend, Pastor Princess Gooden. She shares her story of faith and how she saw God's hand on her life at an early age. She grew up in the heart of Atlanta and really knows that without God's hand, her life would have been in danger. She shares how she walked through some really hard situations, but looking back, she can see how God provided and God protected her along the way. Many times when we walk through things, we look at them in the natural and we would question God, why did you take me from one hard thing to another? But Princess says that she can see how God protected her even though she had gone through a hard situation. She also shares how her ministry, Truth Heals Hurt, came into fruition and what her mission is through that ministry. So sit back, relax with your favorite cup of coffee or beverage of your choice, and let Princess's story give you some encouragement today. I'm here today with my friend Princess, and I always like to tell people how I know my guests. Okay. So it was December of 22, and I was scrolling Facebook, and this ad popped up for Piney Grove's new Bible study, and it was on relational intelligence.
Yes.
And I read the description, and I was like, that sounds exactly like what would help me in this season. And the Lord just kind of planted that I needed to go. Well, your church is a mile and a half from my house. And I've lived in that same place since 1996, but I had never been to Piney Grove.
Okay.
I'd always pass by it and like, one day I'm going to Piney Grove just to go. And so when that ad popped up, I was like, well, this is my opportunity because I don't have church on Wednesday nights. And so I made the decision I'm going. But because of my natural tendencies, I'm very shy and introverted, which a lot of people don't believe.
Right.
But I am. And so I was very nervous to walk in there not knowing anybody. And I pulled in the parking lot and I sat in my car. I don't even know if you remember this, but I sat in my car and I was arguing with God, what am I doing here? Like, I'm going back home.
Yeah.
And about that time, you stepped out of the fellowship hall and looked directly at me and you walked back in. And I was like, well, she's seen me now, I might as well go in.
Yeah, like, I can't remember, I promise.
Yeah. But it was funny. And so I was like, oh, well, let me go in. So I went in, even though you had come out of the fellowship hall, I went in through the front doors. And then I was like, well, let me just work my way back. And so I worked my way through the church and went to the fellowship hall. And I saw you there, and then it was pretty funny, or maybe I didn't. I think I walked back out of the church and walked back in the fellowship hall. That's what I did. So I walked back out the church and walked in the fellowship hall. And when I walked in, I saw Kim Tolles, and I knew her. So I was thinking I wouldn't know anybody, and then I walked in and knew Kim.
Okay.
And all of you that were in there just made me feel so welcome. And I thought, well, I'm home.
That's good. That's real good.
And so it eased my nerves, and y'all just welcomed me in, and I've been coming pretty much ever since.
Been hanging with us,
yes.
family.
Yes. And I have really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've grown to love you and Reggie and all of the people at Piney Grove. I'm like, that's my Piney Grove family.
Yes.
And when I got married, I spent some time in Sharpsburg, but I told Doug, I'm not quitting Piney Grove. I gotta come back.
I'm telling you, that's so good. It's so good to find a place like that.
Yeah, it is. It's been good. And, just the Bible studies, I've just grown so much. So thank you and Reggie for your obedience.
Thank you for hanging with us.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you. So
I asked you here because I love what I've what I've heard from you and your story and your heart. And so just tell us a little bit about Princess, anything you want us to know about who you are right now.
Right now, I'm actually in, I think, a season where I'm embracing the fullness of me. To be honest with you, because a lot of times I have held on to some of my past and then let my past dictate, how far I'll go in my future, whatever. But I am now, right now, Princess is really becoming who God called me to be, and I'm 52 now. And so right now, Princess is getting to know more about my anointing, my gift, and just embracing that I'm different and accepting that, I'm not like everybody else. My story is not like everybody else's. I couldn't say this a couple of years ago. I would paint a picture for you like I might have even imitated you, back then, because to me, I wasn't right and everybody else pretty much had things together. But now what I'm realizing is I actually have a lot to offer, and so I'm producing movies and helping people put out books. I'm going after all of the stuff that I know God wants me to have. So that's where the Princess right now is. I'm on a mission to fulfill some of my assignments.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we all can look at other people and be like, God, why can't I be like them? And he's like, because that's not how I made you. He makes us exactly who he wants us to be. And the problem is, if we look at somebody else and be like, well, I wish I had her anointing, or I wish I had her gift, then you're telling God he didn't know what he was doing when he made you.
I kept thinking it was supposed to be like soft. I'm a very blunt person. I grew up around blunt people. I grew up around people who told the truth, no matter how it felt. But once I gave my life fully to Christ, it was, you pray soft, you love soft. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I don't fit. I don't fit because I'm bold, I'm bold and I don't hold back, and it made me feel like, okay, in this Christian community you're not going to be accepted, because you're too outward. Yeah.
And I see that. I see where you could come from that perspective.
Wow, okay, Princess, they're not going to know you're a child of God, if you don't calm down a little bit, or if you don't teach this way, or talk this way.
Yeah, and I think, my grandfather always said, God gives you a certain personality and he shapes you. And then when you come to Christ and he begins using you, he doesn't change your personality.
And I'm telling you, for me, I think because I grew up in church, my mom was pregnant with me in church. We grew up holiness Pentecostal. We were trained the right way to live holy, okay? So I can never discount that part. I think, though, because I was looking at people and I only saw what they presented. And that's the part we don't get. We never really see the trueness of people until we get to know them. So all I saw was the outward stuff and how they portrayed and how they prayed, and they were so anointed when they prayed, and they were so anointed when they sung. I never knew they had real lives. Right, because we never was exposed to that. So I was trying to fit my messed up life into this place with these perfect so-called people, and it wasn't matching. So I'm like, well, I don't know how I'm supposed to live for Christ. Right. You get what I'm saying? Because it's not matching with what they are presenting. And we had a pretty large church growing up. So it was rough, like, okay, I don't know how to put these bad choices I made, and all of the stuff that has happened to me in this case, and hide it to be something that I'm not. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I don't know, God, when you're calling me to preach, what that looks like. I'm not going to be invited to a lot of churches because of my bluntness and my truthfulness, but that's not the truth, because now I'm getting invited because, okay, you want her because she'll tell you the truth. You want, you know what I'm saying? She doesn't hide. She's not sugarcoating things.
Yeah.
So now I see it different, but back then, like, I couldn't figure out how my life was so messed up and I could put it into my Christianity.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I see exactly, you know, what you're saying. And, you know, what I love is that you do speak truth. Like, you do share your heart. You do shoot straight, because people need for somebody to shoot straight with them.
I didn't think that. I promise you. I was so messed up, Michelle. I was... Even, okay, when God called Reggie and I, Pastor Reggie and I, to preach, we have two different styles. So I was like, And what people don't know is this. The Lord told me to apply. Then I said, Reggie, you have to do this with me, because the Lord told me to say, you have to do this with me. And when I told him, okay, the Lord said, you have to apply with me, and we have to go as a team. I know the Lord told me that I had to be a part of that, but I kept trying to make Reggie kind of, you do it and I'll just support you, or I'll help you. And the Lord was like, no, the only reason why I asked you to bring Reggie in is because in the culture we live in today, a lot of people don't accept women. Preachers. So if I put your husband there, you will just share this weight. But all of the knowledge I put inside of you from working at churches, because I worked at churches full time, in the office area, managing you know, the churches as they grow and stuff. So the Lord was like, I'm going to use you in that, but you still have to preach. You still have to preach. Like, you're not going to just be able to hide. And like I said, for so long, I couldn't figure out how I fit into that world. You know, even though I was born and raised in it. What I found out is a lot of people, what they didn't operate fully in their gifts, and I was again just looking at what they presented. And so as the Lord began to open up my eyes and give me prophetic gift, and I had it as a kid, but I didn't know, you know, what to do with it. But as that began to happen, God began to show me people for who they really were, and I kept saying, wow, oh, okay, that can't be. But come to find out, he gave confirmation. And so I said, people are people here. God wants to use all of us in whatever way he shows us, right? But he wants to use Michelle like Michelle is. You know, not sugarcoated, or Princess like Princess is. You don't have to pretend to be something that you're not. And so I like I said, for the past couple of years, I have really just been embracing, not overdoing it, not you know, underdoing it, just doing, just being. And I have been able to help quite a few people, because I would just do social media. I wouldn't fool with church. I would just do my social media stuff, and just people would just connect with me. But when he said go to the pulpit, I'm like, okay, now I'm about to have problems. Okay, I know I'm about to have problems. I had problems in El Paso with Bishop Mays, and I thank God for him. But they gathered some people together to tell me I could no longer do Truth Is Hurt, because of the style of it, because of what we talked about. We talk about the truth about how you felt about somebody raping and molesting you, the truth about how it felt growing up in a toxic family. You know, we was talking about all kinds, you know, the truth about what it made you do. And they came to me and said, hey, if you want your license, your pastor or your preaching license, you're going to have to tone that down. Bishop Mays, I said, Bishop Mays, I cannot preach. I have an audience. You know, like, I have an audience that God has already provided. And Bishop Mays stood up for me. He was like, no, we need you in that, wherever God wants you. If it's in the pulpit, if it's on the streets, where we need you wherever he wants you. And so that's what made me start just embracing, hey, God is always going to send somebody to advocate or push.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Talk about Truth Heals Hurt, because I love that ministry that you have. And I know you just had your Image Awards, and that's fun. Talk about how that ministry came about, and how God led you to that.
I grew up as a little girl that told the truth, but they always said, don't say that, don't do that, that's too much, you don't have to say that, you can say it another way. So my mom and I started talking in third person. When I wanted to say something about somebody in the room, I would talk to her as if it was her. Okay, because my aunties, different people would get so offended, right? But I'm not saying I was a rude kid. It was, if you ask me something, I said what I felt like was the truth. And so they didn't like it. So like they asked me, I'll give you an example. Like if they asked me something about my father, my biological father, I tell the truth. He's not in my life. He's not this. And they were like, you don't have to tell people that. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to say? Like, he's not in my life, or my mom and they're not together. Well, that kind of bothered other people. So what my mom and I did, well, she did. God used her to help me. She started talking to me in third person. So I would be like, Mom, why you wear that orange shirt like that? Why do you have your breast showing? And she would look around the room for the orange shirt, and it'd be a game we play. And so she would be like, I don't know why I did that. I don't know. Maybe and we just play this game. Because the real princess would have just asked you, like, why do you have your breasts exposed like that? Nobody could really take it. So long story short, I started lying to people. They asked me how I thought or what I thought about something, and I'd be like, oh, it's nice, it's cool. Your hair is cute. And it would be, and then they'd be like, why, Princess, why you tell me that and everybody else is talking about me? And I'm like, well, y'all can't really accept the truth. So in 2007, fast forward, I was like, God, how do I get healed if I keep telling lies? If I keep trying to make it be something different, how do I get healed? So my brand started out with just stop lying. That was enough for me. People could not accept that slogan, like, that was harsh. You get what I'm saying? So I'm like, Lord, we live in a world where people want to treat people however they want to treat them, but when it's their turn, they can't handle it. Yeah. So I said, Lord, you got to give me some other words, because the t-shirts had them on there, the fans, the pens, and you would think at church people would be embracing this stop lying, because that's one of the it's one of the commandments. Yeah. Long story short, the Lord gave me truth heals hurt. Because that was what was happening to me. The more I start revealing the truth, the better I start feeling. I start feeling free. I can't explain like that freedom that I was feeling, like when I start accepting that, okay, this happened to me, even if my family wants to act like it didn't, it happened. And when I got in the room with them, it was no more of trying to pretend that it didn't happen. If you can't accept that it did, that's on you. But now I'm living my truth, because I feel free now. I feel free to speak. Right, I feel free to be myself. And so I had family members that had turned their backs on me because of some of the people, bothering me or touching me inappropriately, stuff like that. So what I realized is that doesn't have to be their truth. It's mine. And as truth came out, it began to heal my hurt, and I was like, I want some other people to get a hold to this. And so that's what happened.
And that reminds me of the phrase hurt people okay, healed people heal people.
Come on. Yes.
And so as you experience that healing, I'm like, you can help other people.
Yes.
And that's the whole point of my podcast is your story matters. And as you tell your story, it gives people hope, and it brings healing. It brings healing to you as you share it, and it brings healing to people who hear it.
Yes. And some you might not be around people who accept it, but what I like to tell people is God will send you some people to embrace what the truth is about you and love the truth. Love the truth and the fact that you are free to tell it.
Yeah.
You're free to tell it, and it's contagious.
Yeah.
even though people don't think so. When you get around somebody that is free to speak on what happened to them, it makes you then feel like, okay, I have somebody who can relate to what I'm dealing with, relate to what I've been through, what I've gone through. Because like I said, a lot of people, even growing up in church, I dated a drug dealer. My best friend got killed. He got killed. I went through a lot of trauma. What I found about church people was when they would ask me, how are you feeling, Princess? I said, not good. They did not like that.
Because we like for everybody to feel good, whether you do or not.
Why did you say that?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to pray about it. No, this is not something, yes, I love the prayer thing, but this is not something that I needed prayer for. This was something I needed you to just accept. It wasn't that deep. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't mind going through this process, but I don't want to go through the process with people in denial. Because it makes it difficult for me to live my truth. And so again, I lost family members around the truth, but what I have learned about people is they switch up. Okay, as long as the truth benefits them, then they're okay with it. But when it makes them look like who they have, opposite of what they have been trying to portray to the world, then that's, I don't really want that. But now I think because I've helped so many people embrace the truth, surround yourself with people who have been hurt before in that way that you've been hurt. So that way when you speak on it, they know you're telling the truth because it's some tips, it's some little steps in there. Something about that conversation makes me identify with you. I may not have been molested like you, but when you start talking and talking about how it feels, I know that feeling. So now we have something that we can help each other with, because I understand you're not making something up. This is real to you. I feel your pain. I understand and identify. So that's why Truth Is Hurt came, because I said once I started healing, I was like, okay, I'm gonna share how I healed. And healing meant accepting the truth even if nobody else would, and that's really how that came about. And so my awards is to celebrate people who do business with truth, whether you're a hairstylist or whatever. Just celebrate people and honor them and let them know that there is a reward for truth, for us living truth.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And, I love that you recognize all different walks and all different professions and all of those things, because, you can have that truth interwoven in everything.
We need it.
Yes.
We need the truth about our hair. We need it about our, you know what I'm saying? About we need friends to tell us the truth, like you're doing too much. Like, don't worry about that. We need people to say, pull back, or that's not worth it. That doesn't even matter. Like I tell people now, that doesn't even matter. So we need people wherever we go. If we are to be the light of the world, and truth is a part of that, we need somebody in every place that represents the truth. In every profession, mechanics. We added mechanics and stuff. We need them to tell you the truth about your car.
I had a mechanic. He worked on my car all the time, and it had like 320,000 miles on it. And he called me one day. He said, "Michelle, it's time to get rid of it."
I need you to nominate him.
He said,
I don't know him.
He said, "I can fix it for you." But it's time for you to stop putting money in this car.
Okay.
And I said, you got it.
Because again, some of us will just stay we will just be comfortable. You know what I'm saying? We won't switch. We won't change. Like, even with you doing your podcast and stuff, I'm like, I didn't know Michelle was already doing the podcast. Like, you should have been in that group. Because again, we need to surround ourselves, every color, every walk of life, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. We just need to have more people who represent Christ. I said in a Bible study one time, if God is with all these churches, and I think you were there that day, I said, if God is in our lives and stuff, why isn't we can't feel his presence in different places when we go in there, since there's so many of us attending these services and stuff. The reason why I said that is because God is truth. You know what I'm saying? And when he's a force, and if we're all coming together, even in the Walmart,
right? We should change the temperature in Walmart.
We switch it, right? Whatever is going on in people's minds, because we're powerful beings, and he says, "Greater works will you do." We should be able to come into a place that may be chaotic with different spirits. We know the Walmart is multiple. Okay, so what I'm saying is, that's why I said that. I said we have churches pretty much on every corner. We have people who go to these churches. When we go into a place, we should be more dominant. But a lot of us aren't walking in truth. So when you're not walking in truth, that doesn't take place. That force, you know what I'm saying? That power behind, that God gives us to change atmospheres. It comes with truth and embracing who you really are. And embracing you have bad days too. You know, and you have better understanding about this person in front of you. You know, that's having a bad one. Right. You be like, okay, listen, I know you're going through something, because I do the same thing. You know, so I think that's it. I think truth is needed, and so Truth Is Hurt became the brand. Like, we put Stop Lying kind of to the side. We added, on the books and stuff, but Truth Is Hurt has been the thing. So now, instead of us saying at the end of it, Stop Lying, we just say Truth Is Hurt. And that way you'll know, hey, you're going to be fine. Yeah, I love that. Talk a little bit about, I know your childhood, you had some parts in there that were very hard. Talk a little bit about how that shaped you, and how that you feel like has given you insight that's helping you today. I grew up, like I said, Pentecostal. I grew up a holiness child. We had rules, no big earrings, no makeup, no, and we wore skirts and all of that stuff. I met a guy, he's deceased now, but he wanted me to be his girlfriend. Long story short, with him wanting me to be his girlfriend, I still saw God's hand in it when I look back that way. Because our area where I was growing up, I grew up in the heart of Atlanta. It became very drug infested, and a lot of drug selling, a lot of using, or whatever. And we lived around the corner from the mayor, Maynard Jackson at the time, and we were down the street from Andrew Young. We had very powerful black people, African Americans around in our neighborhood to inspire us, because I grew up in a predominantly black area. Well, we were said we weren't going to be anything, we weren't going to accomplish anything, and so with me going to church and then getting wrapped up in that world, I always had conflict, because it's like you choose a side. But I only felt comfortable on the street side. And I couldn't ever figure out why I didn't feel comfortable in the church side. The Lord showed me where, as growing up, my mom named me Princess. Okay, so I'm going to jump back. But my mom named me Princess. My dad and my mom, my parents gave me that name. It was grown women that didn't like that. I had issues with the color of my skin. People talked, they made me feel bad about who I was. She's pretty, she's going to be out here pregnant at 16. That's the culture that we grew up with. You're going to have to watch her, because she's going to be in somebody's bed early. Those are the things that I kept taking in. So when I got with this young man, I was so naive, Michelle. I thought he had a car lot and a beauty salon that he owned at this young age, and then realized that he was a big time drug dealer in our community at that young age. He was very intelligent and knew how to do things. Well, he kept giving me money to do stuff with. I didn't know what to do with the stuff. So when I saw a person in need, I would give them the money. I was paying people's rent, lights, whatever. So I still saw God's hand. Yeah. In spite of whatever the lifestyle was. That makes me think of something my papa said: God will use the devil's money. Okay. For good. And I'm telling you, people would get picked at school. I didn't like that. So if somebody picked at your shoes, I'm going to the West End Mall and we're going to get you some shoes. I didn't know what to do with the money. Like I said, I was so naive. I just had this young boyfriend that just kept coming up with all this money, and I didn't know what to do. But my heart was I was always a giver. Like, I just didn't know that, like, you growing into it, you don't really know who you are. Okay, so long story short, as things began to transpire in my life, I ended up having to move away, which is how I met Reggie for the very first time. So I ended up having to go to school in a different area, and I went home, went to be with my dad to live with him. He was abusive. He tried to kill my brother and I. I have stab wounds where when he would get angry, he would do stuff to us. And it got so bad to where I was hurt really bad and beaten with a bar stool stick. And it left me to where the doctor said, without going through details, y'all will be able to read between the lines, but it left me where the doctor said I wasn't going to have kids. And that my body was never going to go back to the way that it should be, womanly. And so God kept showing up for me.
How old were you then?
I was 16.
Okay.
And so I was around the corner from Reggie. That's the funny part. We didn't date each other, didn't know each other. A lot of people didn't know my brother and I was going through this abuse. My brother's deceased now. But they didn't know we were going through this abuse. But I remember one day getting on the bus and I had bruises on me. And when I got to the school, one of the girls on the bus was like, y'all need to ask her questions. Like, she has this stuff on her, right? And so when we reported, got with the the school or whatever, some kind of way my father was able to convince them that we hurt ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So I think if the truth had been told then, we would have been kind of free. You know what I'm saying? We would have gone back to my mom. But the Lord even used that, Michelle, and this is the truth. The Lord used that situation to get me out of Atlanta because people were trying to kill me there. So sometimes, and this is what I tell people, we leave out of one bad situation, we go into another bad situation, and we can't see God's hand. But even in this bad situation, God didn't allow my father to kill me. That situation, I might have died.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So we kind of be like, Lord, if you move me out of Egypt,
why'd you move me to a worse place?
To a worse. Yeah. Like, but with my father, there was a different boldness in me. I didn't know how to fight the street. I was, like I said, naive. But with my father, I stood up for my brother and I had no issues standing up for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would say stuff to him, and that's why some of the scars are on me, because I had no issues with fighting then. But I wouldn't have known how to fight those bullets, or because one day Tony called and told my mom to tell us all to leave out of the house, right? We left and went to the store. Kroger's came back. It's around the corner. We came back to all our windows being shot out in our house. So I knew God moved me, even though I had to go with my father, who had never been a good father, to stay there. I still know God's hand was there because I didn't die there.
Yeah.
In spite of what I went through.
Right.
The way we got out of there, Saturday I had a guy that worked for the sheriff department. He came to be security. What people are going to realize about me now, I'm calling back those things that left me for dead. Okay. So Dale was the one that bought me pizza that night when he saw me. He was a part of our family, and he was so devastated by the way I looked and how beat I was that it just messed him up. So, because he knew my father and everything. So long story short, I invited him to see me now and ask him to be my security for Truth Heals Hurt Awards. Because I want people to see that God's hand has always been, on my life. That was so good for us. That was so good for us. And he said, you see he was so fascinated with all the people coming in the gowns and stuff. But I tell people, God has never left me. Yeah. Never left me. In spite of what route I had to take. I always was in, and I can honestly tell you this, Michelle, always taken out of one bad situation and placed in another bad situation. And I was not supposed to see God's hand. Because it's hard to see God's hand. But I'm like, God, now as you're blessing me, I see why you let me go from one extreme to the other. There's not a situation that I can't help somebody in. There's not a person that I can't comfort. Because I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The levels of it.
Yeah, so. And I think, I was talking with a business coach one time, and he was doing a lot of digging in me, calling some things out, and he said, one of the things that I have dealt with my entire life is rejection. And he said, and I never did put a pin on it until he said,
yes,
and he said, what I see from what you're telling me is there's rejection there. And he said, what you can do with that is you will recognize that in somebody else. And instead of saying,
powerful,
you're rejected, you can say, have you ever felt like this? And you fill in the blank. And that will speak directly to them, because that's exactly how they feel.
That's those pieces I'm talking about.
Yes.
When you start talking, they'll hear something that says, okay, she really knows what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that I feel like God has imparted in all of us. Storytelling, sharing. There's some details, like one of my professors said, we could tell stories all kind of ways, but there's some details in that story that's going to make me identify with your life and what you've been through.
Yeah. And I think you have to listen to that still small voice to know what pieces to say that somebody needs. Yes,
because for me, people who go through things that are hard, tough, like you'll see like these people with these hardcores, and you're wondering like, why do they have that, or why? I can identify with those people really easy, because I was dressed up. I knew how to dress up in church. I knew how to praise the Lord. I knew how to shout. We had that down pat, okay? But how to sit in a place and not be comfortable, that type of, like, I had mastered this kind of stuff. How to sit somewhere and just really embrace the fact that I'm uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Really embrace the fact that I probably need to get out of here. Most of the time I would just sit in it. Like sit in it, toxic or whatever. When I started describing this to this other lady, she was like, I've been feeling like that for so long. Because she knew what I meant. Like, I'm in the room with a room full of people, but I don't feel like I belong in this room. And she was a pastor's wife. So when I said it, she was like, people think because you have people all around you, you got all this love and all this attention, and you could actually feel like there's nobody in here for you. When I said that to her, I said, I think I need it. I just looked at her. We were sitting on probably a sofa love seat or whatever. I looked at her, I said, I'm going to go, because I don't even feel like I fit in here. And she was like, are you feeling like that too? Like, the Lord just played. You know what I'm saying? To me, when you can just say, hey, I don't feel good. You got to be free to do that, though, to say that, so that this person here doesn't feel alone. Like, God needs to be able to use you, like you said, in rejection. And somebody has to feel some kind of way for you to be able to share. You know what I'm saying? So God will say, just you could tell her. You could tell her. You could tell him. So that, to me, is one of the blessings of having discernment. Prophetic gift. It's because I'll be next to you, Michelle, you didn't learn me by now, but I'm Michelle, you don't have no mint or nothing, because honey, we need something to eat or something they don't have. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love it now that I could just be myself. I'm around people now that be like, oh, Princess, well, let's get some then, come on. Like, don't worry about it. I love it. I love it.
And he uses every part of our story, and we can think as we're going through something like, God, I don't know why I'm going through this. Like, why are you taking me through this? And he's just like, hold on, you will know at some point in your life, you'll be able to look back and go, oh, that's why I went through that.
I tell people, you were handpicked from birth. I said, God did not see Princess and say, hey, let me give her some problems. He saw some problems and said, let me give problems Princess. Princess can solve that. Princess can help them. You get what I'm saying? So I started looking at my life a different way.
Yeah.
I'm like, he didn't just say, I'm going to put Michelle down here, just give her a lot of troubles and situations. No, I'm going to take these situations that are already occurring down here on earth, and I'm going to make Michelle be a solution to that. And so now you like, oh, okay, I got handpicked.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on a different assignment.
Right.
Yeah, I'm okay, I got it.
It makes you look at things so much different. And, you know, it's like I always thought, you know, I always looked at this differently too until I heard a sermon from Benny Tate from Rock Springs. And I always thought, well, you know, I knew God created me, but I always thought he created me and then he's like, what am I going to do with her?
Okay.
You know, but Benny Tate, one time I heard him preach this message and it was so profound. I never thought about it before. He said, God had this purpose in mind, something he wanted to accomplish. And he's like, now who am I going to make that will accomplish that?
Come on.
He said, I'm going to make Michelle, and I'm going to make her exactly this way, because if I make her this way, she'll be able to accomplish this purpose I have in mind. I was like, that was a game changer for me.
That's what changed my life.
Yes.
The Lord spoke to me. I'm telling you, I kept saying, why you keep giving me all these problems?
Yeah.
And that's when the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, I'm not giving you problems. I'm giving the problems a solution.
Yeah.
You are the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, ever since then, I've been on a different I just see my spirituality a different way. I see my life a different way. I don't know what this is about this princess and the way she looks. There's nothing, like, I'm not a vain person. There's nothing that I'm excited about when it comes to that. I really see myself a being that has now been placed here on earth to help other people who have these same issues, that can't embrace who God called them to be because of trauma. Because in spite of me getting with a drug dealer boyfriend, I was touched more times than I would like to even remember, by relatives, family members, inappropriately. And people, I still had to eat with these people. I still had to come to these family reunions and stuff, right?
You had to look at them.
Yes, and
knowing what they did.
And people don't realize the traumatizing parts of being in a family that you have to say condone it, right? Because again, they knew. It wasn't like some people didn't know that these things were going on, because I was vocal. See, that's the difference. I wasn't the child that would keep the secret. That a lot of the abuse I had to take was because I opened my mouth. But I tell people, I'm glad I opened my mouth, because the truth about stuff, it really did keep me from losing my mind. I think what people don't realize is when we start making up things, we take our minds in different directions, and then there's confusion that goes on in the brain, because this really happened this way, but now you're telling this body, this brain, no, it didn't happen that way, right? So then to me, even with a computer, okay, when you start putting conflicting instructions in there, what happens? We go into that circle of, you keep clicking, right, to go past this moment. You go into that circle of death, I call it the blue circle of death. Some people call it the everlasting, you know what I'm saying. But I said, you then, you're telling your brain to sort out what's truth. Sort out what's real, and whatever you keep telling yourself becomes truth to you.
You start believing your own lie.
And so then now you're out here talking about, I want to be all that God called me to be. Who are you? Who are you? You are that trauma and pain, but you are redeemed. You are victorious. Yes, you were a victim, but if you don't embrace that part of it, you won't know what victory feels like. You won't know the difference. And when you testify, you won't be able to testify to people and tell them the truth about who God is. Even though I was lost, you know what I'm saying? He found me. That's how people come to Christ.
Right.
The people don't come with our made up stuff and our fake praise. They come with our truth and hey, I haven't always been like this. I haven't always loved the Lord. You know what I'm saying? I haven't always worshiped him. I thought he forgot about me, you know, and when you share that, then somebody else will be like, well, so how did you find him? Or how did he find you? And then you could talk about it. And that's how, to me, people are set free.
And then, too, you know, like talking about, you know, you felt like God forgot you, you know, then you can say, well, this is how I saw that he really didn't.
The whole time he was
with me.
His hand was on my life.
Yeah. And so, you know, that gives people comfort and hope, too, because even if they're in the middle of walking through some of that trauma, you can be like, but God's with you. You may not feel him. You may not see him.
Yes, I had 3 children, Michelle. The doctor said my body would never go to the right way again. Like I said, I got beat really bad with a bar stool stick. And I say that to people because somebody listening will understand that I no longer had an issue with a male body part anymore. Because that trauma from what happened to me with the stick, in my mind, that male body part was normal. That's okay. But for me to get to a healing place outside of, why would somebody do me this way? I tell people now, that's how I can help people who have been done, you know, like been mistreated or whatever. I can help them because I went past that point of sexual abuse to something really sickening. But when God said, in spite of splinters, in spite of you swelling, in spite of your stomach going up and down, you know what I'm saying, in spite of what doctors could not remove, I still had 3 kids.
That's a miracle.
I still had 3 kids.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go get them from somebody. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to use somebody else's body. The 3 kids came from me.
Yeah.
That doctor said that there was no way. And I found out that I was pregnant with my first daughter. I was in college. I was flipping off of a pyramid, and I was already 4 months pregnant. And when I went to the, because I was in school, when I went to the nurse, she was like, well, Princess, we're going to have to, I think you got a little baby. You know, when I'm like, no, the doctor said. And she was like, I don't care what they said. We're going to go. And she went with me to get the ultrasound and stuff. And I'm like, you know, I don't know how. Because in my mind, you know, this is not supposed to happen. When I got there, the doctor was like, no, I'm sure. I'm positive this is a baby. So I called that doctor back that I had gotten to be friends with, because some people were so traumatized by what I went through. They were still traumatized even after I wasn't.
Yeah.
But they wanted to keep up with me. They sent me college, you know, money for school. They felt very sorry for me. But when I called him and said, you told me, and he said, oh, really? Like I said, yeah, you told me I couldn't get pregnant. And then he was like, I probably should have told you to just trust God. like just ask God. He said, because you are very different. Like the things that you have endured and gone through, like you have to have God with you. Like I had those reminders, and I'm.
Thank you for tuning in today to Hope, Health, and Healing. I know that my friend Princess has given you some words of wisdom, some hope, and some encouragement, no matter what path of life that you are on today. Even if you are walking through some hard things, I know that Princess has given you the encouragement you need to know that God is at work, even when you don't see Him, and that He will never leave you or forsake you, that He is right there in the middle of the hard with you. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next week as Pastor Princess shares part 2 of her story, and we hear about how her grandmother, Big Mama, had such a huge impact on her life. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Be sure to like and share and follow this podcast, and share it with all of your friends.